All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with the month of September winding down, we're starting to get an idea in regards to who the pretenders and contenders are in college football and the race to make the playoff. Now, what we know, most of it really shouldn't come as a surprise. Georgia continues to dominate. And outside of a trip in November to face Kentucky, they may not get tested until the SEC championship game. I said this coming into the season, and so far they're holding serve. Alabama is still the team to beat in the tough SEC West, but the Crimson Tide schedule is about to get a little bit tougher. They're at Arkansas on Saturday, which is followed by a home game against Texas A&M, and we know everything that went down in the offseason between Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher. Then on the 15th, Alabama will be at Tennessee. They'll host Mississippi State on the 22nd. They're at LSU on the 5th of November, and then they're at Ole Miss on the 12th of November. So we're really going to see what this Crimson Tide team is made of between now and then. Ohio State, they're still the team to beat in the Big Ten, but showdowns with Penn State and Michigan are looming very, very big. Remember, Ohio State thought that they had enough in their arsenal to get back to the college football playoff last year, but they suffered that loss in the regular season finale in Ann Arbor against Michigan, and that derailed all of those plans right there. In regards to Michigan, they're 4-0, but their schedule is about to get tougher. They opened up conference play yesterday with a 7-point win at home against Maryland, but this Saturday they're in Iowa City against Iowa. They will host Penn State on the 15th of October. They host Michigan State on the 29th of October. And then, of course, finishing up in Columbus against Ohio State in a game that can be will more than likely go very far in figuring out the pieces to the puzzle, if you will, for the college football playoff. Now, DJU and Clemson, their offense continues to get better as the weeks progress. But in the next couple of weeks for the Tigers, they will host NC State and they'll also travel to Florida State. Two big tests for Clemson. Let's see if they're able to survive that. Is USC back? The men of Troy, they gutted out a road win last night over a very good Oregon State team. And then we're going to see the men of Troy travel to Utah in October to take on the Utes, as well as going to the Rose Bowl to face crosstown rival UCLA in November. And this pair of games could go a long way in determining who's going to get to Vegas for the Pac 12 title game. Will Kentucky give Georgia a run for their money in the SEC East? Mark Stoops continues to show that he has a solid program, but Kentucky this Saturday, they got to travel to face Ole Miss. That's not going to be an easy game. The 15th of October, they host Mississippi State. On the 29th of October, they're at Tennessee. And then, of course, on the 19th of November, traveling to Athens to take on Georgia. That is going to be a very big game there. Speaking of the SEC East, is Tennessee back? The Vols are off to the 4-0 start, but their schedule is about to get a little bit tougher as well. You think about it, coming up in recent weeks, we're going to see Tennessee clash with LSU, Alabama, Kentucky, and Georgia over a 5-week stretch. We're going to see what Tennessee is made of. Is NC State ready to make a run at the ACC title? They got Clemson and Florida State coming up on their radar in a couple of weeks. Will Penn State be able to put a scare into Ohio State? The Nittany Lions, they have a very tough stretch of their own coming up in the next couple of weeks. Michigan, Minnesota, and Ohio State in 3 consecutive games next month. That's going to be very tough for Penn State and James Franklin. Utah, they've bounced back after beginning the season with the road loss against Florida. And you look at the Utes, they've got UCLA and USC in consecutive games. next month. And I said this before the season started. That's going to be the toughest stretch right there for Utah. If they can get past that, they got a very good shot to defend their Pac-12 championship. Speaking of the Pac-12, Oregon has rebounded following the beatdown that they suffered at the hands of Georgia to begin the season. And let's see if the Ducks can, keep things going as they look to get back to the Pac-12 championship game, and of course, this time win it after they lost to Utah last year. Is Washington for real? The Huskies, they're off to a 4-0 start, and they got a big test this Saturday at UCLA, or this weekend rather at UCLA. Does Michigan, or pardon me, Minnesota, have what it takes to win the Big Ten West? And I really feel that the Big Ten West is up for grabs. Some team over there has to go out there and try to seize it. I think Minnesota has a good opportunity to do that now. Let's see if the Gophers can take advantage of it. They got Purdue at home this Saturday. They got to go to Champaign on the 15th and take on Illinois. And Illinois is a improving team under head coach Brett Bielema. After that, they're at Happy Valley on the 22nd to take on Penn State. And then, of course, their last two games of the season, they're home for Iowa on the 19th of November. And then they travel to Madison to take on Wisconsin in a game which could decide who gets the Indy for the Big Ten championship game. Is Florida State ready to once again make some noise in the ACC? The Seminoles, they're 4-0. Their confidence is building as the weeks progress, but like it is for a lot of these other teams, their schedule is about to get a lot tougher. They host Wake Forest on Saturday. They're at NC State on the 8th of October, which could be a very tough game for the Noles. Right after that, they will host Clemson. That could be another big game in the ACC as well. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's time for some separation coming into the month of October, and this is very good. All of these teams that I mentioned, for the most part, they're going to play each other in their respective conferences. So we're really about to get an idea in regards to who's who and what's what. And I think that's the way it should be. Of course, you've heard me state my opinion before. Not a fan of the expanded college football playoff that's coming. I know why it's being done. Still not a fan of it. The bottom line is you settle it on the field during the regular season, and then we get an idea of who the true contenders are. But you think back to this coming weekend, Washington and UCLA on Friday night in Pasadena. Then you move ahead to Saturday. Michigan takes on Iowa. Kentucky faces Ole Miss. Oregon State, Utah. Alabama, Arkansas. Oklahoma State, Baylor. Wake Forest, Florida State. Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and then NC State and Clemson. So now we're really entrenched in this. We're going to see and get an idea of who the real teams are and who has the best chance to make the college football playoff, and ultimately who is going to get there. And for my money, I think, Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama have to be odds on favorites to get there. They're the top three teams in the land. I think it's going to be a scenario for my money, just like it was last year. If you have a scenario where Georgia finishes the regular season undefeated, regardless of what happens in Atlanta in the SEC championship game, I think they're in the playoff. Ohio State, they're the team to beat in the Big Ten, but let's see if anybody is really going to give the Buckeyes a scare. I think it's either going to be Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan that more than likely has the best chance to upend Ohio State, but still, it's easier said than done. Alabama, they've got that tough slate that starts with Arkansas on Saturday. They might have a hiccup at some point because the schedule is so tough. I mean, we've seen it in recent years where Alabama might have that loss, but once they have that loss, Nick Saban's crew, they really know how to ratchet it up to another level. Some other teams I really think to keep an eye on, I think USC and Utah. I think this USC team under new head coach Lincoln Riley, he's brought the Trojans back. On top of that, the infusion of talent through the transfer portal on offense for USC. Caleb Williams, Travis Dye, Jordan Addison. And it's really, changed things for SC out there on the West Coast. And of course, Utah. I think this is a very mentally tough team that Kyle Whittingham has. Like I said, they bounced back after that difficult loss to Florida, and I think the Utes really they're starting to get their sea legs. And I think not only are they going to be one of the top teams in the Pac-12 once again, but also I think that they got to get some respect on the national level as well. But at the end of the day, we got about a month under our belts in regards to the college football season, and like I said, now we're starting to get an idea of who the true contenders are. Some of the usual suspects up there, you expect the likes of Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama to be there. Oklahoma was in that mix, but the home loss last night to K State really knocked them down a peg. I think the Big 12, they could still have a say in this. You got Oklahoma State and Baylor, two good clubs that were both on the cusp of making the playoff last year. But with that said, October is almost here. The games are going to intensify as far as importance, and let's see who is going to keep themselves in the race to make the college football playoff. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.